we'd like to welcome you to today's ArtSpeak on HR Ocampo titled Unity, Coherence, and Emphasis, which you'll learn more about through our speaker later. So this program was organized in line with the exhibition A Synergy of Ventures, the post-war art scene, which is currently on view at the museum's ground floor. So just to introduce our speaker, so Ms. Karen Ocampo Flores is a painter, educator, curator, writer, and cultural organizer. Among her affiliations are Tutok, an initiative of visual artists for advocacy projects on issues such as human rights and freedom of expression, in which she has served as project director, and Baglan, an organization for art and culture initiatives for community development. As an educator, she has taught at the La Salle College of St. Benilde, Philippine Women's University, Asia Pacific College, and the Philippine High School for the Arts. Her commitment to serving the community and sharing knowledge extends to various capacities as a juror, discussant, and organizer in various projects and art events, and as a contributing writer, editor, and author in various publications in the Philippines and abroad. Without further ado, here's Ms. Karen Flores.
Anyway, thank you very much to the Ateneo Art Gallery for making this activity happen this afternoon. This is my first ArtSpeak, and thank you all for witnessing this. Alam nyo, ito yung pinakamalaking slideshow ever. I've never done this in my life. And so, also, please bear with me. You would I suddenly found typos that I could not see through my smaller screen. So yun yan. But yun nga, I hope you still, nonetheless, will be able to enjoy this little journey of recollection with me. So I titled it Unity, Coherence, and Emphasis, recalling not just my grandfather, Hernando R Ocampo, who I also endearingly called Lolo Nanding. So, what we recall here is that I found out that of course these are basics, no. If you Google this, it's there's this U, C, and E on writing, U, C, and E on art, U, C, and E on design. No? So ganun siya. So anyway, so may typo siya, sorry po. Before becoming known as a painter, so many people say that the story tends to go this way, that Hernando R Ocampo started as a writer, and then transitioned into the visual arts. But yes, of course he was a writer, but of course he was also making a living. Writing was just a task among his many roles in broadcast, print, and entertainment media. And then also, of course, in terms of writing, he was also a devotee of the literary craft, and also led other writers into his first congregation was actually about writers, which he led, and it's called the Veronica Writers Group. So the point of all this is that he was also, if he was a self-taught painter, he transitioned from writing. It actually applies to both. He was self-schooled largely in all that he did because the fact is that he was always working. The story goes that I think from the age of 7, the tides of the family's fortune, my grandfather's father, Emilio Ocampo, failed at a business in Binondo. I think we used to be based in Binondo. the Ocampos, and then had to transfer to Maypaho, which is just at the, this is a part of Caloocan, but also it's just very near Manila, at the edge of Gagalangin. So there's just a bridge in between. So from Maypaho, there's just a bridge, and then you're already in Manila, and then going to Divisoria ka na, no? As I recall. So they transferred to Maypaho due to reduced economic circumstances. And so that's from the age of 7. And then he would always recall that he started shining shoes. His first job was shining shoes at the age of 12. And then before he did become the cashier of the Maypaho Cabaret for around 5 years. But before that, as a young boy, he was already part of that scene. He was very fascinated, so he worked there too. So in terms of study, setting aside all of that self-study that took up most of his life, he only took up 2 first-year courses. He took up first-year pre-law at the Lafayette College, and then he took up another first year at the Far Eastern University for Commerce. And I think by that time, after doing, he did a stint. He also studied at the School of for Writing, run by it was called the Valenzuela School. I'm not aware where it is now or where it was located before, but it was run by Manuel Argilla, the husband of Lid Argilla of the Philippine Art Gallery. So by 1931, he quit school altogether, and he was able to get his first full-time job at the Philippine Education Company. The PECO is one of those companies established by American services that came here. So one of those services was the Thomasites. There were educators who were on board a ship called St. Thomas. So they had the Thomasites. But anyway, one of those Thomasites was really serious about pursuing education. That he put up this company called the Philippine Education Company, and it was part of its business was to import books from the United States into the Philippines, and it was also running a magazine for educators. So it was really really serious into the education business. So my grandfather was also fond of saying, I got 30 pesos, that was a big thing. But an even bigger thing was the following year, I was given 40 pesos a month. And so I said, I'm gonna get married. So he got married, and then also started congregating the writers called the Veronicans, because they called themselves as such because they're recalling how Christ's face was imprinted by the woman called Veronica in the biblical passages of Christ's passion. So they were, for a group of writers, that their kind of symbol was really very visual. So they wanted to recall them. So my grandfather, because of PECO, being exposed to education, books from America, knowledge that he could get even without formal schooling. And then also, it was also a good answer to it, because as he told Sid Reyes in the interview that can be viewed on YouTube in Articulate PH, they have released, so I think a month ago, this March, Articulate PH released Side A of Sid Reyes' interview with H.R. Ocampo in 1972. It was held exactly at his house in Maypaho, Flores. So he had 19. He said he had 19 relatives. So, so having learned that, I need to start counting who were they. We had 19 relatives that my grandfather supported. So anyway, he also said that that was part of the reason why he was never able to accept scholarships. He couldn't leave his duties as breadwinner for the family. So, my next slide here is about, the May Paro Cabaret. It's Luki, my best friend Luki is from Santa Ana. So, mga well-known cabarets of that time were Santa Ana Cabaret and the May Paro Cabaret. So, my grandfather, this was parang siyang, parang budel lang siya na mga structures. And it's raised, so from the ground. So my grandfather likes telling stories of before he got to work there, he already frequented that. Well, his excuse was that they were hunting for coins underneath the floorboards. So, but I'm sure he was watching other things. So from underneath that, so he likes that story. But anyway, yes, it was a famous place in May Paho, or May Paho, Caloocan was also famous for the May Paho Cabaret. And then, this is interesting because, yun nga, it seems that he was painting even earlier than what was recollected of his first outputs back in the 1930s as a young man. So, ang eldest who says he started painting seriously at 18. Although he also recounts a story that art influence was strong on my great grandmother Delfina's side, so that he had an uncle. My grandfather had an uncle who gifted him his first watercolor set. So he was already into art as a child, but it was not something, of course, that his father approved of. Typical story, those of us who are interested in art are so kung ganun pa rin na-experience natin, then how much more in the past? There's always this discouragement about taking up art. But anyway, ang eldest who says at 18, he was seriously painting. Okay, but also, so it was something that he was continuing even as he was hosting writers, to come out with their creative output, talk together, discuss things. They were able to publish, as Veronicans. I think several, I think they were able to do 2 or 3, but always supported directly from Lolo Nanding's pocket, so it was not sustainable. So it was a usual story. But it's really, they were there really for the getting together. How artists wanted to talk together, collaborate, think of things to, and of course also the important thing is to have someone to debate with. Diba? You find your right artist colleagues in that way also. They need to argue well with you, and I think that was something that he also looked forward to. So aside from so ang eldest who says this, but also Perez would say that he was just more interested back in the 30s while he was doing the Veronicans. He was active in the Veronica writers group. He was really more interested in the theory of painting rather than painting itself. So that was his view. What is clear is that working at PECO, of course, exposed him to the very books that presented the writings of the modernists themselves. So in the interview with Sid Reyes, he cited Kandinsky, but yes, we would have access to Klee, of course the Bauhaus, and of course we'll see later on I'm sure those books that we see in his living room were those very books also that he was able to acquire at the PECO, because as an employee monthly he could afford the books. They were given 20% discount, so there's this active collection and acquisition of books. But as he would point out also, he was not after the visual influence at all. Though he was, like he specifically said to Sid Reyes, I was thinking about how Kandinsky was thinking. So this was key, no, in his own exploration, no, of modernism. I'm reading about the Bauhaus, yeah, but it's about how what they were seeing, how they were thinking. Now also, after office hours in the 19th, so this was the 1930s, office hours, weekends, Sundays, talking together as artists, then of course full-time job, and then still after office hours, they would still gather. So my brother, my grandfather, his brother was Luzon. He's called Luzon Ocampo. He's a he would be a familiar name in papers about the history of Philippine advertising. But I remember him as Lola Chochoy. So they would go also, gathering place then, ang lugar ni Luzon for this kinds of discussion, and a lot of it was before. What I could trace is that before the Edades Tolentino debate in the 1955, these writers, these artists were already active in the defense of Philippine modernism. In fact, Angel Jesus recounts that H.R. Ocampo also wrote an article defending modernism, but they couldn't find that article. He just recalls that he did submit one for Graphic magazine. So this was, and even Manansala would recall that, this modernism, we had it before the war, except that fewer, there were fewer advocates for it. Okay, so these discussions, these gatherings also, so from the realm of advertising, the visual arts, of course, Lola Nanding would meet, two men would also become his longtime friends, lifetime friends. So Cesar Legaspi and Vicente Manansala, who were active in projects headed by Vittorio Edades with the triumvirate of their triumvirate with the Gal Ocampo and Botong Francisco. And also, of course, yes, advertising, publishing. They were back then in the 1930s. There was this strong collaboration. Even advertising kasi was parang one agency, one office would do purely layouts, parang different parts of what was needed for advertising. It was basically crowdsourced. So that kind of work also meant that they were also always talking, collaborating, discussing with each other. So it wasn't just the art, but the very practice of work, those kinds of work itself. So it's just interesting. I made this list because 13 yung Veronicans, 13 din yung napuntang So in the 1930s, I would say that okay, H.R. Ocampo made it to 2 lists, not 13. But yeah, so in the 1930s, Edades would declare his 13 moderns, as the stalwarts of Philippine modern art. And then, also that's the activity of the Veronicas. These were the writers that worked with HR, collaborated and exchanged. There's a lot of exchange going on among these writers and artists. So I'm quoting here what Leo Vanessa observed. Okay, so there's the 13 moderns, but then it can't stop there. So its role is more historical, transitional, rather than iconoclastic. He was saying that the advocacy of modernism for the Philippines needed its own iconoclastic figures, and it was found there through the Philippine Art Gallery. And of course, this whole article will be mentioning also about neorealism. So, lists and lists, but I think what we get to understand here, what we get excited about is that it was a continuous exchange, no, like-minded. Artists have to meet together. If they are not able to effect, no, such collaborations and exchanges, then nothing progresses really, even if we make lists. Anyway, but the interlude was the World War II, the Japanese occupation. So there are several stories of Panano, but anyway, he continued to be active in media. One of the activities banned by the Japanese, in World War II, the Japanese occupation, was Filipino films. Films were banned, and so that paved the way for the golden age of theater, particularly vaudeville shows. So that's what H.R. Ocampo was doing. He was working on these stage shows for Capitol, Lyric, Avenue Theaters, okay, and then but also he was appointed as a censor for the theater, for the stage, and the Taliba magazine. I think it's the Taliba magazine. And yet, he was also, so a famous Filipino guerrilla was Yay Pandillo Marking, who also planted him supposedly in the Hodobu, Mayumi, tama ba? Hodobu, the propaganda section of the Japanese Imperial Army for intelligence purposes. He was joined here by writing colleagues, S.P. Lopez, Manuel B. Arguilla, Narciso G. Reyes, and Montano Nazario. So, but also he was writing more in Filipino, and for in the Japanese-managed Liwayway magazine of those, of those war years, he was also recognized, among 25 best Filipino short stories at that time. So, what I noticed here is that it's really hard to find it's hard to find works, sa 1940s as well. Meaning those the mismong war years. I think because what will be known as H.R. Ocampo works on, especially on the human suffering at the aftermath, of the war, really was came after the war. So this is one of those works, in 1949. I grew up with this painting, just right there at my Lola's other studio. And I grew up with it as a way of understanding his own story about the war, because he never talked about the war. If there were things that he didn't tell us, he wasn't talking about it. Sometimes his siblings would, but he didn't. But his works talked about the war. So this is not I'm not saying I just picked up this Katie de la Cruz photo, but it is a good example of what he was writing for, the plays, the scripts that he was writing for during the Japanese occupation years. So he was busy with the stage. He was doing directing, and for script writing. So this is an example of vaudeville. But the war years, that will be the time na. So my mother, Norma, so I'm the youngest of HR's youngest. So my mother, Norma, will be born in 1941.
Yeah.
And that would complete, so the war years would enter, and the brood was complete. There's Norma, and then the older siblings, Dante and Beatriz. But also, HR was working hard because he had another family to feed, turns out. So after 5 years in PECO, then he went to the National Paper Mills Inc. I think it's also publication. And then he owned and operated, I thought for a long time, Ocampo Art Studio was like a loose gallery. No, it's really an advertising. So he ran it, he operated, he owned it, and also employed his brother, Luzon. They did layouts. And in the interview with Sid, Reyes, he said that they were doing layouts for companies like San Miguel Brewery at the time. Yeah. So one of his employees was Rosa. I'm not sure if that's her real name, but I'm certain that I met Lorena. So Rosa gave birth to her. So they were the other family that were being kept. They had to go to different friends' houses. Later, I met her and I got to know her, si Tita Nani. And my mother sought her in UP. They were together. They were contemporary. It turned out that they were contemporaries in UP din naman. So hinanap lang niya sa mga dorms si Tita Nani. And that's how she said she presented this other daughter back to my grandfather. That's the story. But in the 1970s, yes, she was really present. Medyo di nyo makikita siguro. These are, okay? So 1945, so the war happened. It was supposed to free us, liberate, the liberated Philippines. But HR went to prison in Muntinlupa. So, and also the story about this is that so these are sketches. Looks like something that he did, like live drawing, from among the fellow prisoners, he was with, at the Bilibid. Okay, so he was there. He was incarcerated. And then he wrote a short story called Ikalawang Pagdalaw. It's as known, every public school, high school yata kid knew about it before. So at the end of the war, after liberation, the American Counterintelligence Corps detained H.R. Ocampo from February 1945 for charges of collaborating with and spying for the Japanese. He stayed as a political detainee for 8.5 months. Ang kasama niya sila Claro M. Recto, Jose P. Laurel, Manuel Rojas, Arturo Tolentino, Quintin Paredes, Leon Ginto, Pio Pedrosa, Jose Figueras Aurelio S. Albero, Modesto Farolan, Victoria Edades, Jose Esperanza Cruz, and other cultural and political leaders at the time who were accused of collaboration. Now, what's notable here is that most of them were working in media. And if you were working in media, you're creative at that time. There was nothing that was in Japanese control. So, such a technicality. But also, so anyway, those drawings depicted the fellow prisoners. So let's see. Sige, try natin. So he had here someone playing dama, okay, and then Albero lecturing. So si Aurelio Albero. And then okay, so this begins the text Ikalawang Pagdalaw. Because I just put this together kasi yung the parallel of prison, it was an account, not exactly the prison life, but of the effect of prison on the relationship of a husband and wife. So sabi niya, ang isang tao ay umuwi at bumabalik, ngunit kailanman ay hindi dumadalaw sa kanyang sariling tahanan. Liban na lamang kung siya ay nasa kabilang buhay na at kaluluwa niya, nga, ay dumalaw sa kanyang tahanan o minamahal sa buhay, sa ikatlong araw o gabi ng kanyang kamatayan. So dalaw, yung pagdalaw na physical at pagdalaw na spirit, diba? Hindi na immaterial. So other pictures in the time is counting cigarette winnings from blackjack. Typical, yung mga gagawin mo sa prison. We have an MP. He's supposed to be an American soldier, guarding them. These were all done on brown paper. This is part of the collection of the this is part of the Polino and Hetike collection. Tapos, okay, so we see other events happening at the prison. There's visiting day. We can see lots of people, nakikita with their families. And then, there's evening prayer. I'm not sure if it's, but it looks Catholic naman, evening prayer in Muntinlupa. Pero may mga dates yan, nakalagay siya dun sa drawings. And then, also, maybe I want, I don't know if I'll read it. But, yeah, I wanted to say, ito ay kasaysayan ng dalawang una at ikalawang pagdalaw. Isa ang una at ikalawang pagdalaw ng lalaki sa kanyang tahanan. Dalawa ang una at ikalawang pagdalaw naman sa lalaking yon ng kanyang may bahay. So, kasi dumalaw sila sa isa't isa. The wife visited the husband at the prison. The husband asked for leave, home leave, to visit his wife at home. So, he was talking about the experience of those pagdalaw. So, the first pagdalaw. Sa unang pagdalaw, ay hagkan ko ang pisngi mong luhaan. Ngunit sa ikalawang pagdalaw ay hindi mo ako nakita. At nakaulayaw dahil sa isang pagbabago ng tuntun, there was a new rule in prison, and that she couldn't see the husband. So, at kahit na nalalaman kung di lamang ang mga mata mo, kundi 10 ng iyong puso ang binulungan ng masaganang luha ng salubungin ka ng paunawang walang dalaw sa mga bilanggong politiko. Yeah, they were called political prisoners. Sa pintuan ng bilangguan. Sa unang mong tumuroon ay pinagbilin ko sa iyo na huwag ka nang dadalaw uli sa akin sapagkat ikaw ay may karamdaman. You're sick. Please, you shouldn't be visiting me, said the husband. So, Sabado na ng umaga na makadalaw sa kanilang tahanan. 2 minuto lamang ang panahong itinakda ng pahintulot. Ngunit 2 oras siyang nanatili sa kanila sa piling ng asawa at mga anak. Kahit ang asawa niya noon ay hindi na makausap. He was given 2 hours to visit his home. But then also, the wife was no longer able to communicate. She was saying, it is pronounced Irene. Irene. Ang wika niya sa tuwi-tuwi na, kung inaakala mong di na natutulog ang kanyang may bahay, ako sinanding ako ang iyong asawa. So he was calling her. Isang tamo na lang ng ulo ang bahagya na lamang maigalaw ang tanging nasukli ng kanyang asawa sa hinaba-haba ng pagtawag. So other pictures would show the prisoners at rest, the brigade number 4 on Sunday morning. Not all pictures, this sketching from live, so very day-to-day, mundane, but also can get emotional, just as the story also progressed. It's a very short story. Reading a letter to somebody with a pipe, I imagine para say that. And then, he doesn't name them, and then, scenes of despair, at the railings, So he said, in the silence, he tried to read, sinamantala kong a letter, sinamantalang kong katahimikan ito upang basahin muli ang liham na may 3 buwan mo nang ipinadala sa akin. Ngunit hindi ko pa natatapos basahin ang iyong lumang kalatas ay isang paos na tinig na warit man di ay galing sa isang puok na malayong-malayo ang bigla kong narinig. Sabi, nanding ang narinig kong tulad, isang bulong na isligaw. Ang tinig ay paos, ngunit malinaw, kahit na napakalayang puok. Napakalayang puok ang bil. Such a free place that it came from, that voice. But they were no longer really directly speaking to each other. And then, 2 minutes. So we have, again, the brigade scene, Bilibid prison. 2 minuto lamang tumagal ang ikalawa niyang pagdalaw sa kanilang tahanan. So that was supposed to be the second visit to the house, to the home. Noong sila ay makabalik na sa bilangguan, ay wala siyang matandaan sa mga tagpong ito, liban sa
ang pagsalubong ng kanyang anak na panganay na lalabing 1 taon ng gulang. Hindi pa siya nakapanaog sa jeep ay patakbo na itong sumalubong sa kanya. Ang wika, itay, wala na ang nanay. She's gone. Mother's gone. And that is how the story was written and framed. Two pagdalas, two visitors who do not exactly meet. So it was a farewell that took place. So May 13, 1945, my Lola Irene died. So leaving behind very young my Uncle Dante, Auntie Beatrice, Tita Betty, Tita Dante, and my mom, Norma. So they were too young for that. And then ikalawang pagdalaw, it was first published also, separately, before it was part of the book by Juan Silaya, in Sinigtala magazine. So at the end of the war, he became twice heartbroken. He lost his wife, Irene, and also, during the liberation of Manila, of course, chaos broke loose. The American forces were coming to take over Manila again, and then the Japanese forces were, of course, there were many Filipinos who died. But thankfully they survived, and Rosa fled from Manila to a province and was joined by another employee of the Ocampo art studio, and they got married. So he was heartbroken twice in 1945. So as the story was later told to us, my grandfather lost touch with his family until the day my mother brought Lorena back and presented her to him. So release stories and poems both in Filipino and English during his prison time. H.R. Ocampo busied himself painting and drawing. So and others did as well. So in particular, but we don't see this anymore. He made 18 oils now using canvas ripped from army pots. It's something that we need to find. We don't know where it went. So Sergeant Margulis took these paintings to California, allegedly. In October 1945, he was released without being indicted by the People's Court. So it was, the charges were effectively dismissed. But after this, there was a period of painting, drudgery, suffering, such as also the very subjects taken up by other modernists at that time. So particularly Manansala, Legazpi, and also we have this last work from the Paulino collection. It looks like the return. So I don't know, maybe the return after visiting rites. So, by the way, Break of Day was an AAP, one of the 8 AAP competition winners by HR. So I think he was a winner for the first 3 years of the Art Association of the Philippines. So images after liberation. So these are the kinds of images right after. So it was not something that would. So the prison paintings were the prison drawings. Were the ones that were actually being drawn directly from life. And then it's like everything is an afterthought of what parang release also was going on amongst Filipino artists after the war. So that subject matter and even I just tried to juxtapose another piece of writing, a poem, and this winning artwork, and also planchadora, a woman laboring for ironing clothes. So past the war, the new ventures that would spring for H.R. Ocampo and his art colleagues were rooted in his, I think it was inspired, very supportive of two women really after the war. So And it was not just about being part of their activities. It was a constant interaction. I would always say that, kasi relationships with my grandfather, I really noticed this. It's really always equals. No, so he's not interested in being father of anything. You wanted to be your. Even I met college students back when I was in UP and said they were welcome like colleagues. So this collegiality, which he also got and was, fortunately, was also able to receive from two key figures, women, after the war. So Julita Calo Ledesma, leading the organization, the Art Association of the Philippines in 1948. And of course, it opened a lot of, he only joined for about 2 to 3 years at the AAP. But it's really about the prospect of organization, getting, pursuing professional directions for artists that the AAP annual, semi-annual exhibitions and competitions were able to promote. And then Lynn Argilla, of course, an old friend, wife of Manuel Argilla. Manuel Argilla would die in the war. He was executed by the Japanese forces. Because he was part also of the intelligence mission, also assigned to HR at the time. Okay, so she opened it in 1951. We have here a photo from, I think this is from Struggle for Philippine Art. So we see both Lynn Argilla and Julita Calo Ledesma with H.R. Ocampo, Jose Hoya, Victorio Edades, and other guests during that art exhibition. So for its early days in the 1950s, the PAG was not just a gallery, it was a hub for gathering and discussion among artists that H.R. Ocampo simply loved to participate in. It was really his thing. So it was Emilio Aguilar Cruz, or Abe Cruz, who called them the neo-realists, conveying their new modes of looking at and portraying reality in a world changed by war, right? So Saturdays at the PAG were also about, he said they called them art clinics. It's the first, it was the only time that art clinic. Critiques. So he was very passionate. My Lola and he was so passionate about this critic sessions among artists that he was given a nickname. And they didn't know he had another nickname. Yes. So he was Unity, Coherence, and Emphasis. So, but the PAG was a significant precursor to what he would also do for the future Saturday group of artists. So ganun din, nag-meet din sila on Saturday and talk the whole day and interact. So we have here a picture of Nena Sagil, H.R. Ocampo, Manuel Rodriguez Sr., Arturo Luz, Victor Atesa, and Fernando Sobel at a Philippine event in the 1950s. So just quotes, So neorealism, a symptom of the refusal to totally negate the figure and the commitment to reinterpret it with rigor. So it's not non-representational, it's still representational, but trying to reimagine or trying to look inside, or the scene, the unseen in the scene. So it was also a hybrid moment at which the ties of country and city were most confounding, and I would also say nature and technology. It was because also this was a time, despite the war, science and technology was also on the rise. And also Jonathan Beller, who I think also taught here at the Ateneo. He had several essays about the social realism in the writing of H.R. Ocampo, but also he had this to say about Filipino neorealist painting. So it followed a first moment of social realism in the Philippines, practiced by H.R. Ocampo and others in the early 1950s until the late 1970s, and has been appreciated principally for its formal and affective innovations. What is really very Filipino. But to quote from him directly, sabi nga niya, in my pictures, I'm more interested in how shapes, hues, values, textures, and lines interact with one another in space, rather than capturing a photographic semblance of nature. Also, this is interesting, I'm more preoccupied with the creation of new realities in terms of stress and strain, rather than in the portrayal of such conventional emotions, such as hate, love, anger, jealousy. So stress and strain, what we always like, what's the tension? How is it developed visually? So that was his investigation. He also liked to copy our works. I remember in a conference with Paul Saparalia, he was really denying that cannot be true. It cannot be getting these ideas from children. But he was asking, he would make us draw, and he would keep our drawings. So, and I know, and I know where it came from. Yeah, so so this is, just memories of how this, how his art interacted also with our lives. So I lived here. I was born here. We were all born in my Paho ba? Yeah, Martinez Memorial Hospital in my Paho, Caloocan City. Our street was called Dimasala. And that is, that only shows half because that's a studio. That's not the living room, but the other part is the living room. And we lived underneath. And at entrancewelo ba kami? Yung kami sa ilalim. We lived at the ground floor. Yeah, so that's the house, and then there's a lot of light and pattern going on, and ours was dark because we're the silong. But Lola's part of the house is filled with light, and I like it, maaliwalas, light and airy. So, but that's part of what he lived with, light and pattern. And also he was an enigma to the neighbors. What was ginagawa niya? Bakit paliwanag mo? Ano ginagawa niya? So as kids, we got that question. What does he do? But even to fellow artists, some would see him as a kind of trickster, or he just does things that children do. How nice, how fascinating. So this is the parol that I grew up with. It didn't have, it's made of paper. It's always made of paper. It's like the pastillas. And that's his rendition of that. So, my grandfather was really very organized about it. So it's not for the scholars. The scholars are, this is not fixed. It keeps changing. Okay, so meron siyang there's actually one, I was looking for the picture of that, but there's a framed, yung swatch ng colors, that's with my Tita Betty, Beatriz. So we can see, it can be studied nga of what he's trying to put together with the coloring. And also, apart from that, he would also take shapes apart and try to recompose it. It's a good device, this kind of collaging is also a good device to study, the possibilities of composition that you're looking for. So I saw this picture. I never thought I would find another picture. This is my childhood. I thought that TV was big. This is a TV that we ran to watch Flor de Luna and Voltes 5. And where it is located, his easel was here. So he'll paint with his back to the TV, and the TV is just on. He can paint with all our noises. He can paint with everything happening in the house. He didn't have a studio, like a room of one spoon of an artist. But this artist didn't need that. He was just doing his art in the everyday run of things. And then those are the books. Yeah. It was filled with books. So this is the living room. And yes, he loved his television. Dahil antenna, paano no? And he loved his speakers. There was music always playing. He loved Frank Sinatra. I heard Frank Sinatra and Pilita Corrales.
Idol yan.
Yes. So there were two easels. Like I said, I pointed out the window where that room with the other easel is. So in effect, two easels, not really two studios. So one in the living room and one in a bedroom. And the thing is, they were chosen for they were the windows facing the street. Yeah. So lots of light. So it brings to mind, so okay, so I'm not a critic. So I'm just looking at this also through my own way. And then, yeah. So I was just comparing. So family fractures and folds. It's something that we can see, as part of his work. So we have Father and Son in 1950. So it's a set, this one. And then Ina at Anak. But also this is so here we still see background, diba? That we but the later works would also still it will not delineate the foreground or the figure from from the ground or the background. It's unified. And also, my grandfather taught me, he said, he was the one who told me that, heaven, langit, lupa, impyerno, nandito na. It's all here. And he was telling me, it was so different from I was being taught. But yet the rest of the family remained very devout Catholics, but also very close-minded. No? in the way, I won't equate the two. But my grandfather was liberal. He didn't find me cute. I know that. I didn't find his affection was of a different sort. I found respect, and he never told me to be nice. He never tells you to be nice to others. He lets you be yourself. But yeah, so faith, its rendition, is not in a formulaic way. There's the personal and also there's also something. So both the particular and something that can be general, can be universal. Is something that you can see, that he attempts also in his work. So, Angelus in 1946, Intuibo in 1951. And then seeing home as isn't it interesting that home is stable patterns? Yeah, so there's something comforting. It's also the fact that because here's your still life. Here's your food, your sustenance. You own this, right? This is yours. So there's delight happening of these kinds of works, which seem like mundane, everyday, but to me is also a kind of prayer, appreciation, but very stable, comforting. So mangga pa rin, mangga at isda, dalawang isda. Nag-multiply lang. So those works also from the 1950s. PAG years. Kasi PAG was like 5 years still. And then he continued working, by the way. He was just working also full-time. I think he was director of the NMPC when he was active at the PAG. Now also with women, there are fragmented in views. Yeah. So, I would say that there will be that maternal figure, the one who nurtures, who toils, who sacrifices. Diba? And the other is the creative intellectual. Kasi I think my father runs, he seeks the exchange with women, intellectually. But he tends to marry someone who does not maybe argue with him in that way. Yeah. Because they always call my Lola Irene the gentle Irene. Never a complaint daw. So blooming. So I could see this as a very, very there's something, a resistance, going on in this work called blooming. In 1939, this is the earliest work that we can find. And then the later work, which was also reproduced, maraming version ito. Very, dito naman yung viral work niya. 1977 Madonna. So life and death, as observed also from nature, so cycles are seen there, and then the very contrasts of cools, the cool colors and the warm colors. We can see how he's exploring tension, but also looking for its cohesion, looking for the inquiry is to find its unity still. It will come to it's meant to converge. There are also works, so we know of the we know of the so-called faces of Ocampo works, masks, mutants. But yeah, there's also a lot about scenes and stagings, and even some paeans and, interestingly, urine stains on the walls can form this kind of drapery, like a stage. So, cotillion, the motif, backdrop. I also love this portrayal of ritual and mystery going on. So, a sacramental in 1956 feels like parang explosion, a lunar ritual, again ritual, and in 1966, on the year that I was born. And also, you had this fascination with science. And so the Mutant series, there are actually a lot about that. Because remember there was a lot of television already. Not a lot of people had TVs, but there was a lot of going on being seen in television, and also a lot being learned about in magazines. So we see here, this now, okay, so Ruben Cañete says this is the first of his Mutant series now, in 1950. This work called Mutation. And then, I see here also some kind of cellular growth happening also here, growth. So science, whether in terms of facts and its fiction, it fascinated him in terms of both. I think what we see in it, because whether it's science or religion, you see both hope and doom at the same time. And lastly, I'm quoting from the Articulate PH tape, side A. I imagine, it's a very Plato. I imagine a painting, then I try to paint that imagination. But always the painting is less than my imagination. Imagination is always beautiful. But when you paint it, you can always fail. That's the reason you paint another painting, in an effort to equal your concept. So it's a lot. So one has to, one is pushed by the elusiveness, no, of that perfection, of that satisfaction of encountering that beauty that you have placed in your imagination. We see this in, so having seen him at the Saturday group sessions, painting a nude, looking at the figure. It's not, it's not about making several lines. It has to be a decided line each time he renders the figure. And that's what you see, in those sketches, of an HR. So I just compiled a reading list here for you because we have to continue. Siguro, just to these are still, kasi I still have to discover a lot of things. I was just 12 when my grandfather died. And, I didn't have the privilege to have taken art and gotten his opinion about what I'm doing. Sayang eh. But he also, I did have those encounters with him as a child, but of course he was not going to talk to me, about art, at that time. So I missed that part. But also, because you need to keep I have to keep discovering too, and I think also that we have to gather this knowledge because when I look at the literature, it's always trying to take him apart, and isolate the visual output. Because this is the best, this is the National Artist Party. And then, of course, you hear writers say, ay, buti na lang nag-art siya. Writers saying, it's so good, that he took up, because he wasn't gonna be so good in writing anyway. So, it's not productive to think in this way, and I would even criticize that such a notion is too, again, profit-driven kasing ganyan. We can, just isolate the champion side of an artist. But my point is that they were all together in his life. His practice as a media person, his interest as a writer, his passion as a visual artist. We have to, it'll be hard, but I think we have to take that effort of scholarship to put together what was produced together also. But it's always you see catalogs, okay, so essay here, and then I don't know what's the sense of the curatorial arrangement of how those works are put in the books. So, okay, where, what? Diba? And so the particularization can become invisible to us in such a way. That kind of archival approach. So I'm just saying that we have a national artist. There are lots of things to do to even start to address. Of course, when we say problems, there's counterfeiting. So many things. Just sit, just browse. So many questionable works. I get messaged a lot of times, and siguro if I would say that there's so many inquiries, I've only seen like 2 that I think can be authentic. But yun nga it's really important to do that task, to be to not just lionize the artist, but really do the work of properly archiving and providing a reference for the future generations to look at. Because, my grandfather had a notebook. I would recall a story that back in like 2000s, that must be like late 1990s, when Patrick, Flores, and I asked me to accompany him to his second wife, Crescencia Valencia. So by the time my grandfather was already dead, and then we went to her looking to document some things from her own collection, and she presented me with the notebook. That notebook was filled up by H.R. Ocampo of all the paintings that he did. You know, you only have that note. With that notebook alone, it could help. It could help. It could really help solve. It could help resolve any disputes about how works of his faith. But so she asked us to come back. She said she was going to give it to me. But then when we returned for our next appointment, they said she was not available. We lost touch. She also did stop communicating with us. So, sayang. Kasi I could have gotten that. And yeah, so lots of, and I hope to get questions, reactions. And, so I hope that you enjoy this little talk. And I'm by no means the only source of this. I think every ardent artist is always another. There's always another journey that you can take, learning, experiencing what artists do, and of course, the last key message really is just let's keep collaborating, let's keep trusting each other, because that's how we build. That's how we build this. Hindi ako komportable din sa art scene, no? Hindi ko magamit yun. But this is how we build our art practice. When we say practice, it's really about the knowledge that we were able to generate from each other, and then pay it forward. You need to keep contributing. You gotta take it. We need to know how to take, diba? Because we want to have that outlook of giving. And that's it. Yeah, so hope to be able to answer if you have things to clarify. Thank you very much.